Hey guys, how are all of you doing? I bet you must be very busy practicing your math sums, huh? Well, I just want to welcome you to today's lesson only here on iTTV. And you know me, my name is Mr. Joel, your tutor for Mathematics Form 4. Hi guys, in today's lesson, we are looking at lesson 9 of chapter 2, which is called Quadratic Expressions and Equations. Alright, right until this point, we have learned the characteristics of quadratic expressions and equations. But before we proceed further, let us now recall the use of quadratic equations in daily life. And that brings us to our segment of Mathematics in Life. Alright, what is mathematics in life got to do with quadratic equations? Quadratic equations involves finding the solution to unknowns in various specific situations. Well, we have actually gone through many examples where the use of quadratic equations are very important. Why? Because quadratic equations involves unknowns, and the highest value of the unknown is 2. Now let's look at some pictures over here. Well, what do you see, guys? Well, if you see the bridge there, and the pyramid, or simply a pail of water, well, all these three pictures are simply illustrations to show you that actually we can solve many problems that arise from such situations. Take the length of the bridge, for example. Or, how do you think those Egyptians built those pyramids? They must have a very magical formula. Or think of how do you fill a pail of water until it is full? So actually, in many situations, the use of unknowns are always there. And quadratic equations are special because such equations are equations where the highest power of the unknown is 2. And there is only one name for that, and it is called quadratic equations. Alright, in today's lesson, we will learn how to solve quadratic equations using the method of factorization. And if you recall the previous lesson, we have solved the quadratic equation using the trial and error. Well, the trial and error has some disadvantages because at certain times you have to try and sometimes you run out of patience. Well, I want all of you now to look at today's method to find the solution to any quadratic equation. Alright, determining the roots of quadratic equations by factorizations. First point, solutions of a quadratic equation can be determined by factorization. It means that factorization is the second method to find the root or the value of x for a quadratic equation. And how do you do that? To solve a quadratic equation, follow the steps below. In step 1, write the quadratic equation in the general form. That is, ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0, where a is not 0 and b and c are integers. In step 2, consider which case it belongs to, whether case 1, where b and c is 0, is it case 2, when b is 0 and c is not 0, is it case 3, where b is not 0 and c is 0, or is it case 4, where b is not 0 and c is not 0? Well, let's look at the next step. In step 3, carry out factorization where necessary. The factors involved are linear algebraic expressions. Well, and in step 4, equate each factor to 0, and the final step, which is step 5, determine the value or values of x. So guys, to solve a quadratic equation involving factorization, you must remember these 5 steps. And from now on, you will use the factorization method to solve any quadratic equation because this is a tried, tested and proven method to find all values of x or the roots of a quadratic equation without any problems. Now let's take a look at a few examples. In number 1, in case 1 where b and c is 0, then ax squared equals to 0. Therefore, x equals to 0 is the only solution regardless the value of a. Alright guys, what are we doing now is we are analyzing the 4 cases for every type of possible quadratic equation as we have looked at earlier. Case 1, Case 2, Case 3 and Case 4. And what differentiates all of these cases are the possibilities of the integers b and c taking different values or 0. So look again at Case 1. If b and c is 0, then all that is left of your quadratic equation is ax squared equals to 0. And when this quadratic equation occurs, there can be only one solution. There can be only one value of x that satisfies this kind of quadratic equation, and it is the value of x, which is 0. Let's look at Case 2. When b equals to 0 and c is not equals to 0. Alright guys, I want you to look at this question. Solve 3x squared minus 27 equals to 0. Alright guys, we're going to do this together on the board. Alright, now, this belongs to Case 2. Look at this quadratic equation. 3x squared minus 27 equals to 0. So in Case 2, b is 0, means there is no constant of x. And c is not 0. So in this case, c is minus 27. So you must remember the few steps that we have mentioned earlier, okay? So first of all, is this equation already in general form? And one glance, it is already given in general form. Alright, next we got to look at this equation and see how can we simplify it. Alright, look guys, since 3x squared minus 27 equals to 0, we can divide every term with 3 because each term is a multiple of 3. And you can only do that if you have a quadratic equation. So let's divide the terms with 3. So when 3x squared divides by 3, you are left with x squared. And when 27 divides by 3, it is 9. So all that is left of your quadratic equation is x squared minus 9. Alright, if you remember step 3, apply the necessary factorizations, alright, where it occurs. If you remember this type of quadratic equation, alright, it is factorizing using the identity because both of them are perfect squares. So what is left? Factorize using the identity. You will get x minus 3 and x plus 3 equals to 0. In step 4, you have to equate each factor. What are the factors? X minus 3 and x plus 3. So each factor must be equated to 0. So we equate it in our next step, which is step 4. So x minus 3 equals to 0 or x plus 3 equals to 0. And then lastly, determine the values of x from the simple linear equation once you have equated both factors to 0. So on this side, x equals to 3, and on this side, x equals to negative 3. Therefore guys, the solution for this quadratic equation are x equals to 3 or x equals to minus 3. Remember, when you find the values of x, only these two values will satisfy the equation. And remember, what does it mean by satisfying the equation? When you substitute these values of x inside, the left-hand side will equal the right-hand side. Alright, so factorization gives you the values of x quick and without any hassle. Alright guys, let's look at the third case. Alright, and I want you to look at this question. In case 3, when b is not 0 and c is 0, for example, solve 4x squared plus 7x equals to 0. Alright, let's do this together also. Alright guys, this happens to case 3, right? And when case 3 occurs, it's very easy to differentiate. Why? Because this quadratic equation is not in its full form. Because something is missing here. And you can note that c is missing because there is no number by itself. There's the A, which is the 4, and there is the B, which is the 7. So in case 3, apply the same methods, alright? First one, always make sure before you factorize, your quadratic equation is in the general form. And this quadratic equation is already in the general form when everything has been pushed to one side and the other side is 0. Alright, secondly, look, can you simplify? 4 and 7, nope, none are multiples of each other. So step 3, apply necessary factorizations. I'm sure you are good at this right now. What do we factorize? What are the common factors? So in 4x squared and in 7x, both of these terms has the common factor x. So we take out x and put it outside. Okay, and then remember your factorization methods. 4x squared divided by x, you are left with 4x. What is the expression in the bracket? Plus 7x divided by x is 7. Okay, and then step 4, equate each factor to 0. And guys, you must be very careful here. Why? Because x by itself is a factor. So there are actually two factors here, which is x and 4x plus 7. So equate each factor with 0. Alright, so we have already one solution or one root, which is x equals to 0. There is another solution on this part, and you have to simplify the linear algebraic expression. So from this part, 4x equals to negative 7 and x is negative 7 over 4. So why are these two values very important? Because only these two values will satisfy the equation. They are called roots of the quadratic equation. Lastly, write them down in one final line. Therefore, the roots are x equals to 0 or x equals to negative 7 over 4. Alright, and note the word. It is or and not and. Why is it so? Because either of these values can be substituted into the equation and it satisfies the equation. That's why it is called OR. Alright guys, now we move on to case 4. Alright, and case 4 is the easiest to identify. Why? Because it is in the full method of the quadratic equation. Ax squared plus bx plus c. Come on, let's look at this example. Alright, now solve the quadratic equation 5x squared equals to 2 bracket 3x plus 4, and I want you guys to look at this very carefully. Alright guys, now first step, always make sure it is in general form, which this is not. Alright, remember, get it into general form, and before you do that, you have to expand the bracket. Okay, so 5x squared is here. On the right hand side, multiply it, alright, and expand the bracket. Alright, and general form means you must push every term on the right hand side to the side where x squared is already there. So you push it to the left hand side. Okay, so 5x squared minus 6x minus 8 equals to 0. Alright, it's already in general form. Now, what must you do? Apply necessary factorizations. And when you have the quadratic equation in its full form, you have to apply the cross method, guys. Remember that? Alright, so let's apply the cross method to find. So you can draw, okay, the two lines, and then 5x squared, you get it by multiplying 5x and x. Alright, and what about 8? You get it by taking 4 times 2, and then don't forget cross diagonally. 4x, x times 4 is 4x, 5x times 2, 10x. Alright guys, we are now going to put the sign. And how do we arrange the sign to get negative 6x? The negative must be here and the positive must be here. Then only you will get negative 6x. Alright, and then transfer the signs over to the left hand side. The product negative 8, spot on, you get answers. Alright, so what are the factors, guys, of this? There are two factors, which is 5x plus 4 and x minus 2, and you need to write them down. Okay, so we have managed to factorize the quadratic equation into the factors 5x plus 4 and x minus 2. Alright, don't forget, in step 4, equate each factor. Alright, remember, once you get the two factors which are linear algebraic expressions, equate each factor to 0. So from the left factor, 5x plus 4 equals to 0, or we get the right factor, x minus 2 equals to 0. Lastly, determine the value or the values of x. Alright, so 5x equals to negative 4, and in this case, x is negative 4 over 5, and in here, x is equals to 2. So lastly, write down, therefore, if we were to put these two roots together, we will get the solution for this quadratic equation, which is minus 4 over 5 or 2. Alright? So these are actually ways to find the roots by using factorization, using the 5 steps. Come on, guys, let's go to more exercises for you. Alright, let's look at our next exercise. Find the value or values of x for each of the following quadratic equations by factorization. Alright, so now we have another 4 questions which I will go through with you step by step. Okay guys, now we have 4 and each belongs to a different case. Alright, so I hope you get an idea of what we are doing right now. Alright, we are trying to find the values of x through factorization using the 5-step method. Alright, so let's do more examples. Alright, in number 1, how do we solve 4x squared over 5 equals to 0? Okay, so take out number 1. Okay, 4x squared over 5 equals to 0. So 5 cross multiplied with 0 gives you 0. It comes from here. 5 times 0 gives you 0. So 4x squared equals to 0. So remember, this is case 1. If b and c equals to 0, regardless of the constant a, it can be 4, it can be 1000, it can be negative 500, no matter what, the value of x will always be 0. Why? Because only x0 here, when substituted and multiplied by whatever constant, will give you 0. So there is only one root to this equation, and is x equals to 0. And remember, 0 is also a root or a solution. Alright, let's look at number 2. In the quadratic equation, 9x squared minus 4 equals to 0. Alright, this definitely belongs to the second case. It is not a full quadratic equation, and we have to arrange it first of all in general form, which it already is. So 9x squared minus 4, rewrite in general form. Can you simplify it? No. 9 and 4, both are not multiples of anything. So in step 3, how do you factorize? Guys, how do you factorize this? Remember, it is not the cross method, because the cross method is only for case 4. And this belongs to one of the earlier methods. If you notice carefully, 9x squared and 4 both are perfect squares. So we can rewrite it as 3x bracket square minus 2 square. Once you have managed to write them down as the subtraction of one perfect square from another, you don't have to do anything. The identity comes into place. 3x minus 2, 3x plus 2 equals to 0. Alright, and now, when you equate both factors to 0, you will get your values of x. So the first value of x comes from here. So x, the roots are x equals to 2 over 3 or x equals to negative 2 over 3. Alright guys, so remember the right factorizations, and please be careful especially for this kind of factorization, because many times it slips your mind when you see a type of quadratic equations where you simply have to find and use the identity, okay, to get both factors. Alright, let's look at number 3, 6x squared minus 10x. Alright, please don't cancel the x here because that is wrong. If you do that, you are missing one solution. Always be patient and do step by step. And let's go to, okay, question 3 now. First of all, rewrite in general form. So 10x has to be brought to the left. So you will get 6x squared minus 10x equals to 0. Alright, next, can it be simplified? Yes, it can. Both are multiples of 2. So if 6x squared divides by 2, you will get 3x squared and 5x. Okay, you can only divide by the number, not by x. Third step, apply factorization. And this kind of factorization just involves taking out common factors. Alright, what are the common factors? X. So x has to be taken out. And the expression in the bracket is 3x minus 5. Now, lastly, equate both factors to 0. So the first factor is x. Okay, the second factor is 3x minus 5. Okay, so we have already one solution which is x equals to 0. On the right, there one more value of x will be 5 over 3. Therefore, the solutions are x equals to 0 and x equals to 5 over 3. Alright, now one more, number 4, which applies to case 4 of any quadratic equation. And case 4 involves the use where ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0 is in its fullest form. Alright, so it is not in general form yet, right? Because there's something on the right, something on the left. Something is in general form only if the right hand side is 0. So shift the 3x over, you will get minus 3x. Rearrange it nicely and it will be in the middle. Alright, next, what should you do? Factorize where necessary, and involving the cross method only for this case. Alright, so I will give you straight away the factors, and they are 8x plus 5 and x minus 1. Alright, if you use the cross method, these are your two linear algebraic expressions. Equate both factors with 0. So 8x plus 5 is 0 or x minus 1 is 0. So you have now your two values of x. So when you shift over there, you will get x equals to negative 5 over 8 or x equals to 1. Alright guys, so these are just examples of finding the roots of a quadratic equation. Alright, so we have gone through quite a number of examples, and now why don't you try some yourself? Alright, and it comes to our quick test time today. Alright, now let's look at a few questions for your quick test. Solve by factorization the following quadratic equations. Okay, number 1, 4x squared equals to 0. Number 2, x squared equals to 3x. Number 3, 4x squared equals to 3x plus 1. Alright, and I'll give you some time. Alright, and we'll discuss in a short while. Alright guys, I'm sure you have your answers with you. Let's run through them quickly. Alright, for question 1. This belongs to case 1. Okay, therefore, every equation in case 1, x is always 0. Alright, for question 2, this happens to be in case 3. So since x squared equals to 3x, bring it over to general form. X squared minus 3x equals to 0. Factorize. X bracket x minus 3 equals to 0. Equate each factor with 0. X equals to 0, comma, x minus 3 equals to 0. X equals to 3. Therefore, the roots are 0 and 3. Alright, and in case 3, 4x squared equals to 3x plus 1. Bring it over to general form. 4x squared minus 3x minus 1 equals to 0. Factorize. 4x plus 1, x minus 1 equals to 0. Separate and equate to 0. 4x plus 1 equals to 0, comma, x minus 1 equals to 0. Therefore, the values of x that satisfies this equation are negative 1 over 4 and 1. So guys, let's quickly recap what we have learned today. Alright, today we have specifically looked at the method of factorization to find the roots of a quadratic equation. So guys, remember, at any point of time, there can be at most only 2 different values of x for each quadratic equation. And if you compare the method of factorization and the method of trial and error, which one is more effective? This method that we have learned today. So from now on guys, memorize and learn the method of factorization to solve any quadratic equation. Alright guys, we have come to the end today of lesson 9. Alright, we'll look at more examples and different questions in lesson 10. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Remember guys, practice makes perfect. Alright, and enjoy what you do. I'll see you in the next one. It's goodbye for now.